When you hear the name Trump, it's impossible not to picture towering skyscrapers, luxury hotels, and a life of unapologetic extravagance. From Donald Trump's days as a New York real estate mogul to his stint in the White House, the Trump name has been a symbol of success, wealth, and high-stakes ambition. But how much is the Trump family really worth? Is the Trump family fortune as astronomical as it seems, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Stay tuned, because the answers might just make you rethink everything you thought you knew about one of the most famous families in the world. How Donald Trump has reportedly avoided paying taxes for years. Thanks to investigative reporting by the New York Times, a clearer picture of Donald Trump's tax history has emerged, revealing some surprising details. According to their findings, Trump's core businesses reported a staggering $46.1 million in losses in 1985 alone. Over the next decade, those losses piled up to an astonishing $1.17 billion. The Times even noted that Trump appeared to have lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer during that period. By consistently reporting significant financial losses, Trump was able to legally avoid paying income taxes for years, a fact he hasn't been shy about. "I fight very hard to pay as little tax as possible," Trump told ABC News. When asked directly about his tax rate, his response was blunt: "It's none of your business." Further analysis by the New York Times revealed that Trump paid just $750 in federal income taxes in both the year he won the presidency and his first year in office. Even more striking, the report found that he had paid no income taxes at all in 10 of the previous 15 years, primarily because he claimed to have lost far more money than he earned. Running into financial difficulties, Donald Trump apparently borrowed millions from his inheritance. Let's be honest, we've all hit up our parents for some extra cash or hoped for a little help during the holidays instead of yet another pair of fuzzy socks. But Donald Trump's story takes things to a whole new level. When he was building his real estate career, Trump didn't just ask for a small loan. He tapped into his future inheritance. In a 2007 deposition, Trump admitted to borrowing more than $9 million from his inheritance to bail himself out of financial trouble. Suddenly, asking for a Trader Joe's gift card for your birthday doesn't seem so extravagant. According to the Washington Post, Donald's father, Fred Trump, was one of America's wealthiest men at the time, thanks to his success with middle-class apartment buildings in Queens and Brooklyn. Fred tasked Donald with expanding the family's business into Manhattan, a challenge that thrilled Donald, who saw it as the perfect stage to chase his dreams of fame and fortune as a would-be billionaire. Donald Trump managed to save face early in his career despite a declining financial state. They say if you repeat a lie enough, you might start to believe it. For most of us, that might mean convincing ourselves that midnight snacks don't count. But for Donald Trump, it meant telling the world he was worth a fortune, even when the numbers didn't back it up. In a 1987 interview with Newsweek, Trump declared, "There is no one my age who has accomplished more," and admitted he measured life's value through one lens. The unfortunate, obvious one: money. But while he was busy bragging about his wealth, the New York Times reported that his businesses were struggling. Between 1986 and 1988, Trump made millions in the stock market by creating buzz about potential company takeovers. However, his strategy eventually unraveled. The figures show that he lost most, if not all, of those gains after investors stopped taking his takeover talk seriously. Turns out, you can only fake it for so long. Without his father, Donald Trump may not have ever launched his real estate career. Donald Trump's rise to fame in the business world started with the 1978 development of the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a deal that put him on the map. But behind the scenes, his father, Fred Trump, played a much bigger role than Donald tends to admit. A nearly $1 million loan from Fred's company was a key factor in sealing the deal. The loan helped Donald repay draws on a Chase Manhattan credit line that Fred had arranged specifically for him during the construction of the hotel. But Fred's influence didn't end there. With a reputation tarnished by years of investigations into questionable real estate practices, Fred wasn't exactly beloved in New York's business circles. So Donald became the public face of the Grand Hyatt deal. Despite being new to the game, Donald leaned heavily on his father's money and connections to make it happen. From there, Donald's real estate career took off, and thanks to his growing political ties, he benefited from significant tax breaks, raking in $885 million in incentives in the New York area alone in 2016. Despite her husband's billionaire claims, Melania Trump is only worth $50 million. For all the wealth Donald Trump claims to have, surprisingly little of it seems to flow to his third wife, Melania Trump. Instead, Melania has built her own fortune, estimated to be around $50 million, through her own business ventures and savvy branding. So how did she manage to amass her own net worth while Donald was making waves in real estate? Melania leveraged the Trump name, much like some of the Trump children, to launch her own businesses, including a jewelry line. She also capitalized on her modeling career, landing high-profile magazine covers for Vanity Fair, Allure, and Harper's Bazaar. One of her most notable appearances was on the cover of Vogue in 2005, where she posed in her wedding dress. However, not all of her ventures were successful. Both her watch line and her skincare line ultimately fizzled out. As Impact 2020 reported, New Sunshine LLC, which produced the Melania skincare collection until 2016, ended their partnership. Similarly, MZ Burger and Company LLC, the manufacturer of her watch line, also severed ties with her. Despite these setbacks, Melania has managed to carve out a financial legacy of her own. Ivanka Trump's brand reportedly plummeted once her father took over the White House. Of all the Trump children, Ivanka Trump has arguably made the biggest name for herself. While her brothers largely stuck to the family business, riding their father's coattails to success, Ivanka carved her own path with the launch of her fashion line. According to the New York Times, Ivanka's business was bringing in around $75 million in sales at its peak. Forbes estimated that she earned roughly 7% of the wholesale revenues, meaning her fashion line income could have exceeded $10 million annually before taxes and expenses. However, like many ventures tied to the Trump name, her brand faced challenges, particularly during her father's controversial political career. By the second year of Donald Trump's presidency, when Ivanka was serving as an advisor, sales of her fashion line reportedly plummeted. In July 2018, she announced the closure of the business, calling it the only fair outcome for her team and partners. She added that her focus moving forward would remain on her work in Washington. Despite its initial success, the brand ultimately became another casualty of the Trump family's polarizing political presence. Donald Trump Jr. has lost money in bad investments. Donald Trump Jr. has tried to follow in his father's footsteps with a career in business investments, but according to Forbes, his track record has been a bit hit or miss. While branching out beyond the family's real estate empire, Don Jr. has aligned himself with some rather unconventional ventures. One of these is MSMDF Agriculture LLC, a company that owns a stake in a hydroponic lettuce business. He's also linked to Future Venture LLC, which the Trump organization described as a vehicle for technology investments. Both companies share a connection with Gentry Beach, a Dallas-based money manager and longtime friend of Don Jr. In addition to their friendship, Don Jr. and Beach have also worked together as business partners. But not all their ventures have been successful. For instance, they reportedly lost $200,000 on a failed investment in a dry oil well in Texas. An unfortunate setback in what appears to be a somewhat eclectic mix of business interests. Donald Trump Jr. ran to his father for help when he owed millions. Donald Trump Jr. seems to have inherited his father's penchant for risky business deals, and perhaps the habit of relying on bailouts when things go south. While Donald Trump's businesses have filed for bankruptcy 6 times, as fact-checked by the Washington Post, Don Jr. has had his own share of financial flops. One notable example involves a failed venture in South Carolina. According to Forbes, Don Jr. teamed up with a group of investors to purchase an aging, rusty warehouse in an industrial park in North Charleston. Their ambitious goal was to convert the property into low-cost housing. However, the project never took off, leaving Don Jr. and 2 other investors saddled with a massive $3.65 million loan from Deutsche Bank that they had personally guaranteed to repay. When the financial strain mounted, Don Jr. turned to his father for help. Donald Trump stepped in, purchasing the debt and ultimately foreclosing on the property to resolve the situation. By doing so, he effectively bailed out his son. The elder Trump later sold the warehouse, despite its issues with roof leaks and environmental contamination, in February 2018 for $4.1 million, managing to quietly recoup the investment and clean up the mess. Despite saying he was worth $200 million, Donald Trump reportedly made much less. Donald Trump has always had a knack for spinning narratives in his favor, and even the New York Times seemed to buy into his self-made myth in the 1970s. As reported by the Washington Post, the paper published a glowing profile of a then 30-year-old Trump, where he boldly claimed to be worth $200 million. However, the numbers behind the curtain told a very different story. According to financial records examined by the Casino Control Commission in 1981, Trump's actual income during that time was far from the fortune he claimed. In 1975, his salaried income was just $76,000. The following year, it dropped to $25,000, and in 1977, he brought in about $118,000. Then, much like his later tax strategies, Trump avoided paying income taxes altogether in 1978 and 1979, citing negative income, likely a result of tax shelters. Given that Trump was still working as an officer for his father, Fred Trump's real estate business during this period, his claim of being worth hundreds of millions appears wildly exaggerated. But his ability to sell that narrative and get people to believe it was undeniable. The glowing press coverage from the New York Times cemented Trump's image as a rising mogul despite the shaky foundation of his claims. By the mid-1980s, Donald Trump reportedly owed his father $14 million. When Donald Trump announced his candidacy for president in 2015, one of the key points he made was that he was worth a staggering $10 billion, a claim that quickly became a focal point of discussion. Throughout his campaign, Trump often reiterated the narrative that he had started his career with a modest $1 million loan from his father, Fred Trump, and that he had built his real estate empire entirely on his own, without any help or handouts. However, as the Wall Street Journal pointed out, this version of events was far from the truth. Trump's story, as it turns out, conveniently left out several significant loans and gifts he had received from his father during the early years of his career. The Journal reviewed a 1985 casino license disclosure document that revealed the extent of Fred Trump's financial support in the 1970s and 1980s, which included millions of dollars in loans. By the time this document was filed, Trump owed his father around $14 million. Additionally, the Washington Post reported that the disclosure detailed several other loans from Fred Trump, including a particularly hefty one of $7.5 million, with an interest rate of at least 12%, which was still outstanding in 1981. These revelations painted a much different picture of Trump's early financial years than the one he portrayed during his presidential campaign, revealing just how instrumental Fred Trump's wealth and business connections were in shaping Donald's career. Eric Trump has ridden his father's coattails to find financial success. Eric Trump one of the more low-key members of the Trump family, has largely kept himself out of the limelight, only occasionally appearing alongside his father during campaign events. Despite his somewhat reserved public presence, Eric has undoubtedly benefited from the financial dealings and connections his father, Donald Trump, has cultivated throughout his career. As reported by Forbes, Eric resides in an extravagant penthouse near Central Park, which spans 4 units. However, what stands out about his purchase is that he acquired 2 of the units at what seemed like a remarkably steep discount. These units are located in Donald Trump's Park East building, raising questions about whether he got special treatment due to his family's influence. In addition to his New York property, Eric has stakes in other notable Trump ventures, including the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., and the Trump Winery in Virginia. Although the winery's official website credits the operation to Eric Trump Wine Manufacturing, LLC, land records from Albemarle County, and the president's financial disclosures reveal that the property is actually owned by Donald Trump. This suggests that while Eric is involved in managing these businesses, much of the ownership remains with his father. Donald Trump has been fighting a long-waged war with the IRS. In September 2020, the New York Times published an investigative report that revealed key details about Donald Trump's taxes, shedding light on some startling financial practices. One of the most significant revelations was about a $72.9 million tax refund that Trump claimed and received after reporting massive financial losses. Yes, you read that right. $72.9 million. This tax refund has been at the center of a decade-long audit battle with the IRS, and as reported by The Times, if the ruling goes against Trump, he could face a bill exceeding $100 million, which he would have to pay back. That's a staggering amount, and it's hard not to sympathize with the pressure he must be under, although it's certainly not a position most people would want to find themselves in. According to The Times, Trump's financial filings show a businessman who consistently reports enormous annual income, yet manages to claim chronic losses that he aggressively uses to avoid paying taxes. This practice has led many to question the true extent of his wealth and business dealings, making it clear why Trump has gone to great lengths to keep his taxes under wraps for so long. Could Tiffany Trump's relationship with her father be why she's worth less than her siblings? Tiffany Trump, the only child Donald Trump had with his second wife, Marla Maples, has often been somewhat of an outsider in the Trump family dynamic. According to People, Tiffany didn't spend much time with her father during her childhood, which set the stage for a more distant relationship as she grew older. Her relatively low public profile was dramatically changed when her father's presidency thrust her into the spotlight. Since then, Tiffany has faced significant scrutiny, much of it stemming from rumors suggesting that Donald Trump plays favorites among his children. One of the more striking differences in Tiffany's life compared to her older siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, is her reported net worth, which is estimated at $10 million, a fraction of what her brothers and sister are worth. This disparity has been linked by some to her strained relationship with her father, which, if true, may explain why Tiffany's financial situation hasn't reflected the wealth that comes with the Trump name. Things took an awkward turn when a personal assistant to Donald Trump spoke to reporters, revealing that the president allegedly disliked being photographed with Tiffany because he thought she was overweight. According to Politico, the assistant even went so far as to claim that she had a better relationship with Donald than Tiffany did. While it's impossible to verify the accuracy of these claims, the incident certainly painted a troubling picture of Tiffany's place in the family dynamic. Did Donald Trump run for president to help his declining financial health? It's no secret that Donald Trump is known for taking bold actions when his back is against the wall, but his decision to run for president in 2015 might have been one of his most extreme and calculated moves. According to the New York Times, Trump's presidential run wasn't purely about politics. it may have been driven by the need to reinvigorate his brand and business ventures, which were struggling financially at the time. While Trump had earned a hefty sum of $427.4 million from The Apprentice, it seems that he didn't wisely invest this windfall. Instead, as the Times reported, much of that money dwindled away, much like the funds he'd secretly received from his father, Fred Trump, decades earlier. That money had helped fuel an extravagant spending spree, which ultimately contributed to his financial collapse in the early 1990s. By the time he announced his presidential campaign, Trump's businesses were faltering, and he needed a way to reinvigorate his image and marketability. The Times pointed out in 2020 that his financial situation at the time he entered the race lent some weight to the theory that his bid for the presidency was, in part, a strategic move to re-energize his name and brand. Running for president, a highly public and ambitious endeavor, was perhaps seen as the ultimate way to revive his business fortunes, especially as his properties and ventures were facing financial hurdles. In hindsight, it's easy to see how a political campaign could have served as a way to increase public attention and reshape his image, but the sheer magnitude of the decision to run for president, especially given the state of his finances, suggests that Trump was willing to take drastic measures to give his business empire a boost. Whether it was a political pursuit or a branding strategy, his campaign certainly turned out to be one of his most high-stakes gambles. As we dive deeper into the complexities of the Trump family's financial journey, it's clear that their wealth is built on a mix of strategic maneuvers, bold decisions, and, at times, controversial tactics. From Donald Trump's early investments to the challenges faced by his children in managing their own ventures, the Trump family's financial empire has certainly been a roller coaster ride. Now, with Donald Trump's victory in the 2024 presidential election, the question arises, how will his renewed political power impact the family's wealth moving forward? Will it further solidify their financial empire, or will new challenges arise? We want to hear your thoughts. Comment below with your predictions on how the Trump family's wealth will evolve in the coming years. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth content on the Trump family's financial legacy.